Alrighty. Welcome back to another episode of the Unframe of Mind show where we have uncomfortable conversations without a condom. I am your host, Daniel Wagner, and today I wanted to try something a little bit different. I stumbled across this Reddit community called AmITheAsshole, and it's pretty fascinating seeing the number of different inquiries into trying to figure out whether or not these people are assholes in the scenarios they've set up. And I decided to take a shot at determining if someone is the asshole, because, I mean, what better person to figure out if you're an asshole than an asshole? I mean, it just makes sense. So I suppose let's dig into it and figure out what's going on. So let's start off. We'll read the post first and then we'll go from there. It says, I, 23-year-old female, have been friends with Jane, a 22-year-old female, for almost 9 years now, though we have known each other longer than that. She has had a lot of problems, physical and mental, that are not my place to discuss specifically. Our friendship has had its ups and downs over the years, to say the least. As of right now, she is excluded from my life, but she is on the fringes. At one time, we talked daily, and now only on holidays, birthdays, and special occasions. Jane has always had trouble with her dating life. She picks boyfriends poorly, as in guys who are creepy and bad news. Her relationships have been a big factor in me pulling away from her. A big turning point in our relationship was when she dated a male, much too old for her, from 2017-2018. I warned her about it, but she did not listen, and I felt I had to inform her parents that she was in a dangerous relationship with a 35-plus-year-old male when she was still underage. I do believe she was manipulated and taken advantage of in that relationship, but I still made an impossible choice to distance myself from her at the time for my own well-being. In 2020, after the previous situation had died down some, we started talking a little bit again here and there. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, she tells me she has had feelings for me and wants to be more than just friends. I was taken aback as this was unexpected, and I'm openly straight, and she has always been aware of that. She eventually apologized, but I pretty much cut her off because I felt she risked our whole friendship on feelings she admitted were random and that she considered for only a day before confessing them to me. I ended up giving her another chance years later, and she never seemed romantically interested in me again. Things were going well for our relationship. However, since then, she has done highly questionable things regarding her romantic entanglements, including almost something illegal, and at this point, I'm pretty worn out with her. Now that you have some background, my family knows some about some, not all, of the issues between Jane and I, but both her and my families are still good friends. Jane can't drive, so my mother will occasionally take her along to events my mom and brother attend if Jane expresses a wish to attend. On one of these recent occasions, I did not go. I've had recent health issues, and I also hate these events. My mom and brother told me that Jane expressed to them how she was struggling mentally again and was in a bad place. My mother and brother now want me to reach out to Jane as they claim I am her friend and I am able to help her where they cannot. At this point, I'm also one of the few friends she has. I made it obvious I did not like that concept and did not intend to do so. Now they are upset with me, claiming that I am a bad friend and that they're disappointed with me. So, am I the asshole for not reaching out to a friend of mine who is struggling mentally? So, upon my first reading, there's something I noticed that was hugely missing from this entire story. Is any father figures, any positive male role models whatsoever. It seems like the only people that were mentioned were her friend and her, of course, her mother and her brother, and I would venture to say that Jane didn't have a father figure in her life because there's no possible way that I, as a father who happened to be 40 years old, would let my young teenage daughters date anybody that's my age. That's ridiculous. I would be intervening in any way possible. And I don't think they'd be too interested in those kind of relationships to begin with because, well, they had a father figure in their life. So they're not seeking to find that father figure. I got a sneaking suspicion that Jane desperately is looking for that male attention to replace her father, where she didn't have one before. And I'm venturing another guess in saying that the writer of this also did not have a father figure in her life as well. It seems like the only opinions that mattered are her mom's and her brother's. Now, the fact that Jane doesn't drive tells me, even though she's in her early 20s, that tells me she's really not taking the steps needed to get her life together. She doesn't seem to have any drive to succeed in life, and she's constantly just bringing everybody else down around her. So I don't think that this particular person is the asshole in this relationship. I think she's actually kind of waking up to it and going, wait a minute, this person's not good for me. This person is extremely toxic to me. This person is making some very questionable life choices, and I would prefer not to be involved in that because it's obviously bringing her down as well. I like to think about the phone call test in these cases. If this friend were to call you and you saw her number come up on the phone, would you answer? How would you feel about that seeing that name on your caller ID? Would you want to answer it? And if the answer is no, not really, or you would hesitate, or you would stall around, or just straight up don't want to answer it, that can go pretty far in telling you everything you need to know about the status of that relationship. Now, it may not give you the specifics, but it's a pretty good jumping off point in trusting your instincts in this. I also noticed that in the telling of this story, the brother, her brother, tends to take on some of the feminine qualities insofar as he's using those emotional manipulators to try to get his sister to do what he thinks is the right thing in reaching out to this depressed friend. That's not typically something you see in masculine roles. I don't tend to use manipulation, or especially the emotional kind, to try to force my children to get them to do things they want, or to force my siblings to get them to do what they want. Typically, you're going to have a little more structure in terms of, logic and reason. Less of the emotional side, more of the logic and reason side. I'm going to make the case, and if you don't want to listen, that tells me everything I need to know. I am not going to continue in a relationship with you if I'm going to continue to give you advice that you just won't take. And it seems like the writer did exactly that. Tried to warn her friend that this dude is bad news for you. But did her friend listen? No, not even a little bit. And it seems like we've gone through this rigmarole multiple times in this case. And at some point, you just got to throw up your hands and just accept that this friend is clearly not going to take your advice. She doesn't value your friendship or your advice enough to take it. And she's not going to. She's just not going to. She's making her own decisions. She knows how to run her life. She's a strong, independent woman. She don't need nobody. Now, the second thing that I noticed missing from this entire story was the fact that it seems boundaries are just not a thing for anyone at all. Like, nobody's respecting them. Nobody's drawing them and formulating them. Nobody's expressing them. Nobody's communicating them. Like, there's just a total lack of boundaries in this case. And it seems like at the point of this writing, the OP is about the only one that is maybe starting to make some boundaries, and she's still feeling guilty about it, and it's not helping that her mother and her brother are completely disregarding her boundaries and putting her friends' needs above their family members. It's completely wild. I noticed right in the first paragraph, she says, Jane's had a lot of problems, physical and mental, and they're not my place to discuss specifically. Now, that to me is a respecting of a boundary. Like, I'm respecting the fact that my friend is not involved in this conversation at this point, so I'm willing to draw a boundary. And that's kind of the first sign that the writer is actually starting to form boundaries and starting to realize the value of them. But the problem is, as we go into the second paragraph here, she's not really she's starting to get the idea of boundaries, but they're still very hazy. As we read the second paragraph one more time, our friendship has ups and downs over the years, to say the least. As of right now, she's not excluded from my life, but she's on the fringes. At one time, we talked daily, and now only on holidays, birthdays, and special occasions. Now, it seems to me, if I were this girl's father, the advice I would give her is that you need to cut this friend off at this point. This is clearly a toxic relationship. You clearly don't, I assume we've already had conversations, her and I, but I wouldn't even need to, as a 23-year-old female, we wouldn't have to have this conversation because she would have already been raised to understand boundaries and know how to form and know how to respect them and know how to, when it's time to cut them off, it's time to cut them off. She would have less of the sentimentality that's tied to how her friendship used to be or the person that she thinks her friend could have been at one point. I think she's got a good heart. She sees a lot of good in this friend, or potential good in this friend, but I think over time, it's again, she's getting worn out. She's starting to see that it's not going to be a good relationship. She's starting to cut her losses. And then they have the big blow up over the way too old male that she was dating. But then I want to revisit this 2020. After the previous situation had died down some, we started talking a bit again here and there. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, she tells me she has feelings for me and wants more wants to be more than friends. Now that's pretty alarming. This Jane does not have any stability in her life whatsoever. She's just kind of like a ping pong bouncing all over the walls and just doesn't really have any guidance or direction in her life. And she's just reaching and grasping and just trying to find something to hold on to. And I guess when she feels like she's losing her friend, she wants to grasp onto her and maybe even take it to a almost sexual location. Like, hey, I think I like you more than... She doesn't know what she likes. She doesn't. But the fact that she was taken aback as this was unexpected, and she's openly straight. Now, this takes me back to the boundaries again. Jane knew the boundary. She knew her friend was straight. It's not a secret. They've known each other for, at this point, 4 or 5 years now in 2020. Yeah, somebody for 5 years, they're straight. They probably didn't show any sign of liking you at all. And all of a sudden, you just throw that at them. That's really inappropriate, first of all. But it's also a complete disregard for boundaries. It's like, oh, you have a boundary called you're straight? Too bad. I don't care. I'm interested in you, so I'm going to fulfill what feels good to me. And I'm gonna make you uncomfortable in this moment. Okay, she goes on to say she even apologized, but I pretty much cut her off because I felt she risked our whole friendship on feelings that she admitted were random and that she considered for only a day or two before confessing them to me. That's insane to throw in this level of grenade into the relationship, and just like you didn't take the time to think it through about how this would impact your friend. She doesn't have any regard for her friend's feelings whatsoever. Which means at the very end, when she's like, I don't want to go and talk to this friend who's depressed because she already knows. She doesn't care about her. Why would she care about it? It doesn't. It's not a two-way street between the two. Now to revisit that last paragraph again. My mother and brother now want me to reach out to Jane as they claim I am her friend and I am able to help her where they cannot. I made it obvious I did not like that concept, and I did not intend to do so. Now they are upset with me, claim I'm a bad friend, and they are disappointed with me. That sounds like total feminine crap to me. I'm sorry. That just sounds like some real girly shit. And the fact that her brother's even participating in this, like I said before, you can kind of tell there's no male role model in this family. I don't think there's a dad in this equation. Or a father figure for that matter. But just, now we're so disappointed in you. We're upset with you. And then, and we're just disappointed. Like, that doesn't solve anything. All it's doing is pulling on those emotional heartstrings and taking advantage of the good heart that this writer has. And trying to manipulate her into making up with this friend. Like, it seems like this is an equation where the OP needs to cut out everybody in this story. I don't see a productive relationship in having parents and siblings around that are going to completely disregard my feelings and my boundaries and just basically manipulate me into doing what I'm clearly not wanting to do. No curiosity, no asking, hey, why is that? Tell me more. Why don't you want to go see this friend? Like, no, they just see this as, well, this is the right thing to do and you must do it. And now we're going to pull out all the stops and we're going to do everything in our power to make you feel guilty for this. To force you to do what we think is the right thing to do. So, yeah, I'm going to say not the asshole. Not the asshole at all. Matter of fact, you seem like the most healthy person in this entire equation. So I hope that helps. Now, if you liked this format and you would like to see us do some more, please let me know in the comments because this is kind of interesting. It gives me a chance to bring the relationships category of the show into it. And if you have a particular question for me, if you're thinking maybe you're the asshole, feel free to call in. talk to me, write to me, whatever, and I will do my best to suss out whether or not you're actually the asshole. If you want to see more like this, please hit that subscribe button, click like. You've been watching the Unframe of Mind show. I'm your host, Daniel Wagner.